Hey everybody, welcome to another Sunday Night Live over here on Clark Real Estate channel. So as usual, before we go live, I just want to make sure I am live in case if you don't join us on this live, you're able to watch it on a replay back. Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful Sunday thus far. Live, you're able to. All right. Yep. So I am live. Hopefully having a wonderful Sunday thus far. I have been watching my basketball and the team that I had got upset. So my Sunday has now gone down. It's like I'm playing, but nonetheless, if you guys are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Also, if you are a returning subscriber that always joins us over here in the live chat, don't forget to hit the like button when watching the video to help us kind of boost us through the algorithm. And then it also not only does it help us get us through the algorithm for more people to join in the conversation, but it also helps in the sense of finding related topic videos that might coincide as far as what you're watching when it comes to your YouTube suggestions. And then if you are watching the replay of this video, there might be a shooting star underneath this video. It is called the hype button. Please hype the video as well, because it also creates suggestions for you along with pushing us through the algorithm. I appreciate everybody joining us, and we're going to get into this topic. Hey, what's going on, Dad? We're going to get into this topic. I'm going to turn off the music because I don't know if it's too loud. And but before we start this topic tonight, which is about sellers relisting their houses now. So there were a lot of sellers who pulled their houses off the housing market in a sense of waiting for the spring market to come in order to sell. However, some buyers are still not buying, even with them pulling their houses off the market and relisting these similar houses. If you guys don't know, myself, and I did it in our the community tab on the post, myself and a fellow agent at my brokerage, we are holding a webinar this Saturday coming up, March 14th, I believe is March 14th. I'm going to share it real quick with you guys so you can see it. It is a webinar. Everybody is invited to come. You don't have to live in the state of Georgia to attend this webinar, but if you wanted more information around things like this, as far as if you are a home seller that is trying to sell or wants to sell in the future, or maybe they pulled their house off the housing market and now they're relisting their house, we have a webinar coming up as far as if you want to sell your house without making those repairs and what to do. So it says skip the repairs, sell your house now, stop wasting time and money on a to-do list that never ends. If you're ready to ditch the contractors and sell your home exactly as it is, this webinar is for you. And so right here, if you go over to, again, the community area, you can click the link right here to register for it. And also, maybe you know somebody. It doesn't have to be yourself wanting to sell your house, because I know right now in this environment, most people are not wanting to sell, but you might have a friend, a family member that is thinking about selling their house, next door neighbor, somebody that might have had conversation with you and they wanted to sell it as is, right? So this is an opportunity to jump on, have a discussion, learn a little bit about it. Again, you don't have to be locally in the state of Georgia. However, this will just give you some insight. And again, it's always great to consult with your local professional as well in your area. All right. So, and I'll share this again at the end in case you guys didn't see it in the beginning. So that way, if you want to join us, you can head over there and click that link and reserve. Hey, what's going on, Miss H? Thanks for joining as well. I appreciate you guys being here on this Sunday night. Let me know if you guys can hear me clearly. And we're going to, as usual, what we're going to do before we start this topic, we are going to look at the mortgage rates and we're going to see where they're at according to Mortgage Daily News, if it pops up on my screen, because it's trying to be crazy and funky today. If we so we head over to Mortgage Daily rates, and this is basically just showing you guys where the rates are at, similar to what we saw them at last week when we jumped on this live. I think we saw it last week around conventional 30-year is 6.14. The conventional 15-year is 5.74. Yeah. The jumbo 6.44, the ARM is 5.45, the FHA 5.72, and the VA is 5.74. As you guys know, and what we're experiencing right now in the United States of America, along with another country, we are in conflict due to the administration. I kind of dislike when we go into conflict with other countries, especially because hitting people and causing trauma and all this stuff to random folk, civilians, and even people that are involved in the army, right? We're attacking stuff and making things hard. But not only that, we're going to make it hard financially for everybody all around the world, outside of them, of course, losing their loved ones, which I do not like, nor do I agree with. But nonetheless, this is where our mortgage rates stand as of right now. And again, this is on a national level. This does not mean if you go and get a pre-approval the day that your lender will approve you at these rates. It could be lower, it could be higher, or it could possibly land around here because of all the different factors. All right, so now we'll kind of head up into the topic. Again, I appreciate everybody being here with me tonight. So yeah, so the topic is about basically sellers wanting to relist, buyers still not buying. Let me know if you guys are currently even in the market, if you're trying to buy or know somebody that's trying to buy, and how has the process been going? How has that journey been going? Has that person been finding it difficult to buy, or have you been finding it difficult to buy? Let me know. So we're going to talk about this a little bit. Then we're going to jump into as well as far as the job reports. If you guys haven't been watching it, as far as what's going on in the economy, job-wise, there wasn't as many jobs produced as they thought was going to be produced. And because of that, that could possibly, and then people are losing jobs, and that could possibly aid to homes sales decreasing. And then also people possibly fire selling, where they might have lost their job and now they have to put their house on the market, something before they have to, before it possibly hits foreclosure, any type of difficulty. So it says home sellers are relisting properties at faster pace in a decade, but spring supply is still low. So this lady is Diane Oleg. She's saying the spring supply is still low. It depends on where you're at. Again, I'm in the Sunbelt area, Metro Atlanta area, so we actually see a lot of supply. It's not low. In some states where you might be at, it might be low because maybe people listed their house and then they took their house off the market and now they're relisting it again, or maybe they took it off, maybe they rented it out, because some people end up that tried to sell it, couldn't sell it, also put it on the market for rent as well, got a renter and put renters in place. And because of that, the house has come off the market for possibly a year, depending on what their lease situation looks like. So, hey, what's going on, Lang? Thanks for joining. I always love when everybody comes in, have discussion inside the live chat. Don't be scared to have conversation. I'm here to have conversation, and any question that you might have, be able to answer them as effectively as I can. It says the all-important spring housing market is off and running, and while the pace isn't expected to be strong, there are signs of optimism, at least among sellers. Some who gave up last year are jumping back in. Nearly 45,000 homes that were delisted last year were relisted for sale in January, according to Redfin, a real estate brokerage. That is the highest January since Redfin began tracking the metric a decade ago, and represents a record of 3.6% of homes that were on the market in January. So be mindful, you guys, as we mentioned, the data is always going to be skewed with real estate because typically it lags about a month behind. And that's only because it typically takes about a month for a transaction to close, and people also, if they're listing their house on the market, take some time for them to declutter, set things up accordingly, talk to the realtor, get that marketing and everything going. So with this being the case, we always see a lag in data of about a month or so. The January figures come as Redfin reported a record number of sellers pulling their homes off the market last September. Close to 85,000 sellers delisted, up to 28% from September 2024. Higher mortgage rates last year, still high home prices, and growing uncertainty in the economy sidelined buyers last fall, taking sellers out of the driver's seat where they had been in years during just after the pandemic. So a lot of these sellers, depending on where you're at, again, this is all very local based. Down here in Metro Atlanta area, a lot of our sellers are institutional investors, are local mom and pop investors, are new coming, maybe real estate agents turned into flippers, developers, all these different things that they're starting to develop in their repertoire, I guess you can say. And with that being the case, you have that, and also regular homeowners that are selling, people that bought within the last 4 years that are trying to sell because taxes have gone up. All these different factors come into play. And with that being the case, when these people didn't see that they could possibly get what they wanted from their house, they delisted those houses, and then they said, I'm going to wait until the spring market to try it again. And now they're back on the spring market. Some of them actually, depending on where you're at, might have listed higher than what it originally was before. Some of them might have came back in at the same level, and then some of them might have came in lower. In the market in Georgia, whatever pocket you're in around this Metro Atlanta area, some people who listed last year, I have been seeing that they come back in where they listed at last year, which even if properties have sold lower than what they listed it for last year, they're still coming back in at that last year mark. Even these investors who might have bought in 2021 and paid full cash, or maybe they took out a loan and they paid a lot of it down, have renters in place, they're still trying to come in tight and heavy. And most of the home sellers who bought within that last 4 years are doing the same thing, where they're coming back in a little higher. Because what I'm noticing is that what these home sellers are doing is that in the midst of them listing their homes, they're refining. And do not refi your home and then try to turn around and list your home. You guys are going to be paying more on top of your current mortgage because you refied. Do not do a refi cash out. Don't do all these type of different things and then put your house on the market to sell because you have another lien in place possibly. It's just not smart. And that's what I've been noticing. Ashley Rummage, a real estate agent in Raleigh, North Carolina, in response to CNBC's fourth quarter housing market survey, said in December that more sellers were being asked for concessions and some just refused. And yes, this is what's happening now as well. There are sellers are being asked for concessions. And so just to give more context around concessions are typically something that could be like closing costs. It could possibly be, could you pay the full year of my HOA? It could possibly be repair credits, depending on how your loan is set up. And you have to talk to the lender to see if you're able to do a possible credit at closing or after closing, where you can supplement. Say you can go and get let's say the roof needs to be done on a house that you're trying to purchase, and instead of that seller wanting to give you that up front, they say, well, we can just give you a credit, so when you close you can go do it yourself instead of them having to replace it prior to closing. And what they'll do is you'll go out, you'll find a vendor, a roofer, a contractor, you'll put them in place. At the closing attorney or the title company, depending on what state you're in, they will then facilitate that transaction where that money will go to that roofer company, whatever company it is, and then they will go along after you close, come out and do those repairs. Again, every loan cannot allow for that. So if you are seeing something like that happening, ask your lender to see if your loan allows for you to be able to take those credits. But those are different type of concessions. And as they stated, some of these sellers last year and the years before, and even some now, to be honest, are still refusing to pay these concessions. If you're getting closing costs, typically, well, in the state of Georgia, I should say, the closing costs are contributed to the buyer. These are the buyer's fees that they have to pay in order to close on their loan, the origination fees, the title fees, transfer fees, all these other fees that they pay. So those are fees that incur because of you as a buyer taking out the loans and doing all the title stuff, the appraisal, all these different fees. So most sellers feel like, well, that's not my fee, that's the buyer's fee, so they don't want to pay it. However, we have seen some sellers willing to offer those concessions in those forms of closing costs, as far as HOA payments for a full year, as far as replacing, the roofs, any type of credits. But a lot of them don't want to do that. And I tell people the reason why some of them might feel hesitant to do so is because if you had a home that you purchased, let's just say even in 2000, you purchased a home in 2000 at $100-something thousand. Now you need to sell your house and you need to get into another house, or you're moving on to somewhere else. And now you're like, okay, I need a certain percentage because houses are more expensive. Now I need to offset if I'm moving from this house to this house. So a lot of these people are calculating how much money they're going to get out of the sale of their homes, and is really in a situation where they don't want to sell for less because they know it's going to take this to move over here. Is it the best thing to kind of stay very stubborn and stuck as far as place and not negotiate? It's not. I always tell people, even as home sellers, you should always be willing to negotiate. If someone puts an offer in, if it's not like a super lowball offer, right? If your house is $500,000 and somebody puts it in for $300,000, you can try to negotiate it back up to close to 500, but you know that they're looking already on the downside, right? But if it's $500,000, somebody put an offer in, let's just say for $450,000, negotiate it, make it make sense somewhere, right? See how it makes sense, because the longer you wait trying to negotiate or try to get that price at the top, you might be actually chasing the market if people start to sell for less. All right, if that makes sense. And you might get lucky. You might get people who might come in and buy it for what the house is worth, might pay more for the house. So it could go either way. A lot of sellers I've encountered, this is the agent, worked with just worked with have just thrown their hands up in the air and said, if we can't get what we want for our house right now, or what we think is worth, then we're going to go ahead and take it off the market and try again maybe spring, Rummage said. The overall inventory of homes for sale nationally is higher than it was last year, than a year ago, but the gains are plateauing according to Realtor.com. And so again, this is what we just talked about as far as you can play but you can play roulette, if you want to say. You can play roulette, and you could try to say, you know what, I'm gonna pull my house off the market as a seller, and I'm gonna relist next year. But again, we don't know what tomorrow brings. Nothing is promised tomorrow. So if you know you're trying to sell, you should sell sooner than later. Again, we don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. Maybe you get lucky. Maybe prices go up. Some people who bought a home in 2020 and they got lucky, right? They turned around and their home, they bought it for $250, and now their home is worth $400,000, right? But then you also got people who might have bought before the great financial crisis happened in 2008, bought it for $260, and now the home was only worth $200,000. We don't know what tomorrow brings. So you're kind of playing that Russian roulette where you're trying to say, okay, I'm gonna do it then. I'm gonna wait then. And so sometimes it could bite you in the butt, So just gotta be mindful. If you feel like it's something you need to get out sooner than later, then it makes sense to have that conversation with your local real estate professional or whoever you're using. If you're using yourself, if you're using the professional, if you're using a sister or brother, I don't know who you're using, but it's great to have those conversations, open up discussion, and then make it make sense that it contributes to your life and how you need to move. But if you're just on the sideline trying to be super greedy, then super greedy can sometimes bite you in the butt, just to be honest. Active listings were up 7.9% in February year over year, but the number that has been shrinking for 9 straight months. Listings are still 17% from 2019 pandemic levels. Inventory has improved for more than 2 years, but the momentum has faltered in recent months, said Danielle Hale, chief economist of Realtor.com. Supply gains have been concentrated in the South and the West, skewed toward home prices below $500,000. So basically saying that there has been more houses popping up in the South and the West. Again, I know the Midwest and the Northeast is kind of having different approaches. Oh, she says it right here. While the Midwest, the Northeast and the Midwest have seen growth, they remain significantly undersupplied. So this is as people are talking about, this is a bifurcated housing market where you're seeing one area that houses are still staying hard and steady, maybe prices are appreciating, and meanwhile you're seeing another area like the South, some Sunbelt states, some parts of the West, where the houses are slowly depreciating and the home prices are adjusting down. And I'm not saying it's happening quickly, right? People are still trying to hold steady even in the South as far as what they want for their home price. But we are seeing people that are willing to kind of cut and take that a couple thousand off of the price. With rates now hovering near 4-year lows, Hale said, a key question is whether this thaw spurs more buyers or more sellers. Mortgage rates have climbed slightly higher in recent days due to the ongoing war in Iran and renewed fears of overinflation. So as you guys know, just as we mentioned at the top of the show, there have been, conflict overseas, and this could possibly, I don't know, to be honest, and this is just my opinion. Let me know your thoughts, whether you're watching live right now or whether you're watching on the replay. Because of this conflict happening overseas, and because we're already in a distressed market in America, really, when it comes to housing, and we're overinflated already. Typically during war, inflation occurs. Supplies go up, as we're seeing gas prices going up right now. But what's happening is that if those both meet, I see a collide type of thing happening where everything could possibly crumble. Just in my eyesight, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but housing is already squeezed tight. People are already losing their jobs. Jobs are already tightening things. They're laying people off, trying to make room for their books as far as paying people going forward. So we're already seeing this prior to this conflict happening, and now this conflict is happening. On top of that, the housing market is starting to slowly decrease depending on where you're located at. I honestly feel like that we could possibly see, especially in the South, if this war kind of lingers on very long, we could really see a breakdown of the housing market. And I believe Depending on where you're at, we're already seeing about 10%, 15% loss in appreciation in people's homes. But I believe we could get possibly close to 25, 30% in the South market. Is it taking longer for it to happen? It's like slowly, because we're slowly kind of tugging along where people don't want to come to reality. It definitely could, but sooner or later, it's going to have to collapse like a levee, because it becomes unsustainable for people to be able to hold on much longer. Let me know your thoughts. Again, don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but this is just how I'm looking at things, just because there's so much going on. We have so many different things happening right now, and in the economy, and it's so much underlying things that sooner or later something is going to snap somewhere. All right, let's talk about what they had reported in regards to the job market. Hopefully you guys, or you don't know anyone that is in this situation, but people have been getting laid off. And of course, in February, we lost 92 jobs.
The U.S. economy unexpectedly lost 92,000 jobs last month. CNN's Matt Egan joining me now. 2 words, not good.
That's right, Sarah. Not good at all. This was an all-around disappointing jobs report, and it's likely to renew those concerns about America's labor market. Now, as you mentioned, the U.S. economy lost jobs last month, lost 92,000 jobs. That is much worse than the gain of 60,000 that economists had been expecting. It's also a significant slowdown from January, when a surprisingly strong 126,000 jobs were added. Now, the other disappointing news is that December was significantly revised lower as well. Previously, it was reported as a modest gain. Now, look at this. It's a loss. That means 2 out of the last 3 months, the U.S. economy lost jobs. Now, when you look at the trend for job growth, we know that last year was a disappointing year for the job market. You can see this goes back to early 2025. And there had been hopes coming into today that this report would show that the job market has stabilized. But the fact that we have an unexpected loss in jobs, that suggests that no, it has not stabilized, and there is still weakness here. Now, the unemployment rate was also disappointing. The expectation was that unemployment would stay at 4.3%. It did not. It did tick higher to 4.4%. Again, that's higher than expected. It's not high overall, but you can see when you zoom out over the last 3 years or so, it has moved up. So why was this report disappointing? We're still going through it. One thing to call out is that healthcare, which has been really the engine.
All right, you guys. So the reason why I have this and mentioning this is because in order to be able to effectively purchase a house, you need to be employed, right? Typically, the lender wants to see 2 years of employment. There are other ways to purchase homes, depending on how you're utilizing the loans, investors, all those different things where you don't have to have the full 2 years. Again, talk to your lender about that information. But the purpose of mentioning the job market is because if people can't afford to buy a home, the people that are trying to sell, it puts them in more possible distress. Also, let's say if you do currently own a home and you can't find another job at the moment, that also puts you as a home seller in distress when it comes to having to sell your home. And so this kind of bleeds into all different areas when it comes to the housing market. We got to be very understanding of what's happening in our U.S. economy. And we have to look at these small nuances that occur throughout, because this affects housing as well. And also, I do believe, from just what I'm seeing personally in person, and also what I'm hearing from different people or throughout different news reports, that I think that the unemployment will probably go up higher than 4.4%. I believe it might hit even 5%, especially if the conflict carries on in Iran. I think that we'll probably hit a higher unemployment rate. And with that being the case, I feel like we might, honestly, depending on where you're at, we might see more people, home sellers, possibly put their house on the market, just because them not having a job and I'm not sure when they can possibly obtain another job. I feel like I'm saying possibly all daggone long, but I gotta say possibly because I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't predict what will happen. But that could occur, right? Also, the jobs, as you can see, we lost 92,000 jobs. Those are layoffs that are inside that as well. And so, yeah, And I know people are asking, or they want lower rates, mortgage rates. Everybody's saying, oh, we need the mortgage rates. And I don't really think it's the consumer or the home buyer that's trying to purchase that wants lower mortgage rates. I feel like the media is pushing that on people, and it's more coming from the real estate industry, where they keep talking about lower rates, and are like, the economy, the US government, they're kind of pushing lower rates. And in actuality, what I've been hearing from people who want to purchase is more of, they want the home prices to come down, more affordability of home prices, and the rates could kind of stay, where they're at, or possibly move down maybe into the lower fives. But at the end of the day, what people need to be mindful of is that typically what happens is when the rates drop, when mortgage rates drop, there is some type of economical stress happening in the market. There's some type of pain happening somewhere, in which the government, or I should say the feds or whoever, they're trying to alleviate that pain, that stress, that possibility of something breaking. So during the pandemic, they didn't know it was going to happen, so they lowered the rates then. When the crisis happened, the housing crisis happened in 2008, they lowered rates then. The rates were floating before then, they were floating in like the 5 to 7 range. Then the housing crash happened, and then they went down to like the 4s, and then they stayed in the 3s for a long time. Then they hovered back up into the 4s. And then once the pandemic happened, it zoomed back down to the 2s. So it's always when there's some type of uncertainty happening, some type of pain happening, some type of distress happening within the United States, or just around the world, really, we see that lowering of those rates. And so I tell people, it becomes a catch-22. Do you want the rates lower? Because if the rates lower, then that means we're seeing some type of pain somewhere, some type of distress somewhere, some type of uncertainty. Or do we stay where we're at rate wise, and do we just ask people to possibly bring down the purchase prices of their houses and take on that 5% mortgage rate, maybe the 6% mortgage rate? Because then that means that we're kind of hovering, and we're doing okay, or we're trying to get back to having a better, effective, healthy market. And it's not just in housing, it's also, prices of the food, prices of gas, all those things, they can slowly but surely starting to soften if we're in a more healthier economy. And so I guess you got to get way to scale and see what makes sense to you as a person that's looking to possibly purchase a home or sell a home. And I've run into sellers where they're like, I don't want to put my house on the market either, because buyers aren't buying, and I want all that I can get for my house. And so since they're not buying, I'm going to wait until rates come down. Again, these were sellers I was talking to about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. The rates ain't come down that much. Yeah, they might have went up to the 7s, and maybe they're in the 5s now. But now look at them. They're going back up again, because, well, we're in another situation. We're in conflict now. We don't know when it's going to end. We don't know how it's going to end. And the terrorists pushed in because of the Trump administration. All these different factors occur that no one knows. So that's why I tell people, everybody always waits for tomorrow. And sometimes it's okay to wait. You got to assess how you're going about doing things. But if you know that it's something that you want to do, or you need to do now, and you cannot wait, then don't put it off. Don't prolong it. Have a conversation with the people around you that you trust. And if you are if you are looking to buy or sell, have a conversation with a real estate professional, and they can be able to hopefully lead you down a great path, right? If you bought a house a couple years ago and you got to get out the house, or you think it's better for you to move now, but if the real estate agent comes to you and say, hey, you bought your house at $500,000, but now your house is only worth $450,000, and you haven't paid enough of that loan off, and you see that you're underwater where you owe more than what the house is worth, it might not make sense for you to sell that house unless you physically feel like, okay, I need to get out of here. I can't sustain myself. I'm just going to have to pay the difference at closing. I have the funds saved. I just need to get out of here so I don't feel stuck or trapped, because I don't know what's coming in the next coming years. But if you can't really do that and assess that correctly, then it might make sense for you to say, hey, I need to put this house up, cut my losses, and, I just say that, sorry. You might say, hey, I don't need to put this house up right now. I need to just stay in it for a longer period of time, see how this economy readjusts itself, because eventually what goes up must come down, and what goes down must come up, right? And you just have to wait that period out. Not sure how long it's going to be, like what happened in the great financial crash, right? Depending on where you were located at. And especially I saw down here in Metro Atlanta area, 2008, some of these houses didn't regain their value until 2019. So that's dang near 10 to 11 years. So it just depends. You have to weigh what makes sense to you. What do you need to do? If there's something pulling you or pushing you forward that you have to get out now, you can't sustain yourself, then it makes sense to sell. If it doesn't make sense to sell or even buy, vice versa, then you just have to do the pros and cons and see what makes sense. All right, it says job slump and mortgage rate jumps, but housing remains resilient heading into the spring selling, Daniel Hell. And again, this is a live about sellers relist, buyers still not buying. So we kind of touched on, sellers relisting a little bit, buyers still not buying because of that unaffordability level. Maybe they feel like the rates are too high, in which the media is kind of pushing that lower the rate. I honestly don't feel like we need to lower rates. I feel like home prices need to readjust down a little bit more, and then the rate should stay flat. I feel like if we stay even in between the 5s and 6s, bring the housing affordability down for the average right now. Most of the medium or nationwide average is about, I think, like 400,000 or 300,000. I think now, as far as the average, the medium price home within that range somewhere, if we can get it down where that medium is around 300, between 250 and 300,000, and have rates between 5 and 6ish, I think we'll be in a good situation. And most people can kind of hold steady. She said, we saw a softer than expected February jobs report, unemployment rising, employees shedding more than employers 90,000 jobs, which we kind of already mentioned. We also discussed that last week mortgage rates dipped below 6%, which you guys know if you were on here with me the weeks before. We saw that conventional hover at 5.99%. FHA and VA is still under 6%, but there again, this all depends on you and what your overlays look like. The conflict in Iran and inflation fears, which remain on the edge, higher tariff rate world, have pushed 10-year yields higher. Mortgage rates ticked back up. So as you guys know, at the beginning of the live, we discussed how rates went back up. And it says, and are likely to move higher unless we see the escalation. So that's basically saying unless the conflict over Iran kind of de-escalates, kind of comes to an end, we could possibly see higher rates as far as mortgage rates. But it is vital to keep these moves in context. Last year, mortgage rates were above 6.6% and climbed to nearly 6.9%. So they're basically just stating that how last year the rates were higher, but this year the rates are still lower than last year, which we all understand. But we really want lower affordable homes. We want affordable homes, affordable housing. It says the better mortgage rate environment is just one of several buyer positives, which it is a positive to know that the rates have come down. That is a positive, but affordability with housing is even another positive, where we can bring those rates down and get that housing price down would be even better. But the overall increase in active for sale listings continues to lose momentum, and gain have been did I just freeze? Contracted in lower price tiers in the South and the West. This is one of the factors nudging the typical listing price. So they're basically saying how the listings are losing. For sale listings are either one being pulled off the market, or two, possibly going under contract and maybe they're selling. But also when it comes to the South and the West, as we mentioned earlier, that prices are adjusting down. We're seeing sellers cut their prices. The report also examined data on contract cancellations, finding that the share of canceled contracts among homes on the market is in line with historic norms. Cancellations aren't rare, so both buyers and sellers should keep this in mind as they negotiate, but our data suggests that they're roughly as common as they usually are at this time of the year. As you guys know, there have been buyers canceling. So buyers are going into these houses. A lot of these houses, especially if they're investor owned, they're not being upkept properly. So we are finding dated systems, maybe a dated HVAC unit, a dated air condenser, a dated water heater. The roof is not being repaired, so the roofs are dated. And then you're possibly finding busted pipes, leaks here and there. And with that being the case, a lot of these buyers are like going to the sellers, hey, can you do X, Y, and Z? The sellers are like, no, I don't want to do X, Y, and Z. And the buyers are walking away. So we're getting canceled contracts, and I'm all for a buyer walking away if a seller's not willing to do something. Because if I was walking into buying a house that was dang near $500,000, and I need you to fix X, Y, and Z before I buy this house, and if you don't fix it or you don't give me money to fix it, oh baby, I'm walking away too. I'm not buying no $500,000 house, and then you don't want to replace nothing. You must have bumped your head. So I'm all for you as a buyer walking away. And I know sellers probably don't like that. But also, seller, this is when you have to have a conversation between your real estate agent and you as a seller to really talk about these things, because at the end of the day, you step out of being a home seller and look at it on the buyer side. Once you were a buyer, and when you sell your house, you might possibly be a future buyer if you're not going into renting. And if you go into a house that you're trying to buy and you see the same thing pop up, you think that you would want to move in that house and make all those repairs for $500,000? Like, we have to pull ourselves out. And this is the problem. Most people get stuck into their whole zone. Like, I want this, me, 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 me. And that's what America in the world has become, a very individualized world where everybody's about themselves. And with that being the case is that you want this, you want to sell high on this end. And then as a buyer, you want to go in and, you want to cut the price. You want them to lowball their price and then also get them to fix everything. But yet you didn't want to do it on your side. So it got to make sense. The math has to math, as they say, as the younger people say nowadays. The math has to math. And so that is when it comes into play, where you need to talk to your family, your friends. You need to talk to your real estate professional. You need to have good conversation, and don't just talk to a real estate professional that just wants to say what they just want to be a yes man. You need somebody that's going to really sit down and have a conversation with you and say, hey, X, Y, and Z. Like, think about it. Step out of their shoes, step into their shoes, jump out of your shoes, and vice versa. If you're a buyer, step into the seller's shoes too. I feel like, again, people are very stuck on this whole approach where they're thinking about self. And yes, I understand, but this is the whole thing of negotiating as a home seller and as a home buyer to make sense for both parties, right? So I don't know. Some people don't like to hear that, but that's reality. Looking at Realtor.com, housing data on trends in the past week shows that home prices softness was steady throughout the month as active listings growth lost momentum. Fortunately, new listings grew for a third week, and we are logging this growth as we move even closer to the heart of the selling season. This is a key indicator of buyer-seller momentum. I'm watching. So as you guys know, typically the heart of the selling season is the spring season. Last year in 2025, we didn't really see much movement happening. We kind of saw more movement happening when it came to the winter, which was actually interesting. But we'll see what happens this spring. I don't know. I just have to see if people are willing to readjust their prices, if things make sense to people. But with people losing their jobs, the job loss, I don't know. We'll really see much of a uptick, because right now, what's really happening when I pull back the curtains, and I don't know if you guys know this, but what's really happening right now is that the wealthy people are the ones buying. People who have the money are buying. People who might have been saving for 3 to 4 to 5 years, that saved a lot of money, or 6 years or whatever, those are the ones buying, who might have the cash that they saved on the side, or they're wealthy and they're buying. But most of Americans who do not have that extra cash on the side, or not a multi-millionaire or billionaire, they're not buying. They're really strained for cash, and they're really stuck, whether in their house or they're stuck renting, and if they want to buy, because it's hard to rent nowadays because it's so expensive to buy. And with that being the case, even renting is expensive nowadays, so people can't afford to save. You have gas prices going up, you have grocery prices going up, you have all these expenses happening, and so people can't afford it to do so. So right now, the transactions that's happening in the housing market are either people who have saved or have that dispository income that they are using to buy, or is more of a wealthy person who has that money as well, that they can just go out and buy a house. But I'm not really seeing the average American just buying houses like that, to be honest. Let's see. And this kind of just talks about the pandemic and everything. And then the article ends right there. And it's talking about the days on market and what we're kind of seeing in regards to people buying. And all right, so now I wanted to talk about this. Let me know your thoughts. Again, if you're watching this on a replay, let me know your thoughts. Let me know where you're tuning in from in the comments below. And also, how did you get over to the page? We would love to know who brought you over here. And we would love for you to stay and engage in conversations every Sunday live at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And hopefully, if you guys don't know, today is Daylight Savings Day. So we are earlier than an hour ahead. So we're here a little earlier. Let's see. Hey, Ms. H. Why is the spring seasons better for people buying or selling? I thought people buy any time of the year when they can afford to, or is it better so people can see things better from the weather? So most people buy in the spring, and it's typically because that is when children are out of school. So we see if you have a family and you're shifting to another state, another area, you will be able to effectively have the kids get out of school. Then you can go and you can put them in place in the other school. So you get that. So that's really normally one of the biggest reasons why the spring market has always been that great time, because historically that's when the shift happened, when the kids are out of school and all those different things. But what's happening now, I don't know if you guys noticed, there's not as many Americans having kids. So the spring selling season or the spring markets haven't been the same in the last couple of years, to be honest, because of how the dynamics are changing. But yeah, that's typically one of the top reasons why people kind of buy and sell in the spring, just because of those trends. It's a transitioning time and period. And then also the winter time, most people don't want to transition. And, with snow, so much, like you said, as far as the weather. But I always tell people a great time to go see a house is when weather elements hit the house. So in the springtime, you might not be able to see that as well. But in the wintertime, you can see what the snow might do to the roof, what it might do to the gutters, if it causes the gutters to sag, what the rain might do. Maybe it might seep in somewhere. So it's always actually great to go see houses when there are weather elements. But traditionally, most people buy in the spring because of those. That's like a shifting season. And if you have kids are getting out of school, and you can kind of get everything in line before that fall happens, before the fall occurs where they're back in school and things like that. All right. So hopefully that made sense, Miss H. Thanks for asking the question. So I wanted to touch on this before we get out of here. It's called the 3-3-3 rule. I don't know if you guys ever heard of this, but they utilize it two different ways. And this is more for somebody that's looking to possibly purchase real estate in the future. And I think you should look at it in this way. And so you guys can, break it down. As I always mention, it's always great to write down what you're doing when it comes to purchasing real estate. It's more about understanding the finances, understanding your finances, and if it makes sense for you to purchase or sell in that moment. But this is more on the buyer side. If you're trying to purchase, it says, what is the 3-3-3 rule in real estate? It's when it comes to buying land or investing in property, have a clear plan, helps you avoid financial stress and make confident decisions. The 3-3-3 rule is a simple but powerful guideline that helps you assess readiness before making a real estate purchase. Whether you're buying a home, a rental property, or rural land in Utah, X, Y, and Z. It basically helps you in finances. I also say you can apply this to regular life too. Outside of just trying to purchase something, even if you're renting, apply maybe the 3-3-3 rule. So it says, what is the 3-3-3? Let's make this a little bit bigger for you guys. I don't know if it's going to look any bigger, but I feel like it's making this part bigger at the bottom. But all right, so the 3-3-3 rule, it says you want to have 3 months of emergency savings, 3 months or mortgage payments saved. So you want to have emergency savings, but you also want to have 3 months of mortgage payments as well. And then 3 property evaluations before purchasing. So they'll break it down. 3 property evaluations is seeing 3 properties before you just select one. It says the 3-3-3 rule is designed to protect buyers from rushing into deals without enough financial or practical preparation. It is built on 3 straightforward strategies that help you assess your ability to buy and manage your properties responsibly. It says 3 months of emergency savings. You should have at least 3 months worth of living expenses saved before purchasing a home. This ensures you can handle unexpected costs such as repairs, income loss, or delay without relying on credit or dipping into investments. So now I want to be honest. I feel like it should turn. This should be 666, possibly 6. And that's kind of bad because that can mean something else. But we're not taking it in that way. So the only reason why I'm saying this is because how we're seeing the economy happening right now. I feel like you should have 6 months of emergency savings because people are losing their jobs. Because when things break down in your house, these systems, they cost an astronomical amount of money, thousands of dollars. The water heaters, the HVAC systems, the air condensers, the roofs can cost you, what is it, a 40? What is it, a 40? I forget what it's called, but roofs can cost you maybe as low as $8,000, maybe as high as $30,000, depending on how big the roof is, how the pitch of the roof is. There's so many things, and so you should be able to save enough money, right? I say 6 months of. It says 3 months of mortgage payments saved. Having an extra 3 months of mortgage payments is reserved, creates a cushion in case you income fluctuates or you experience a vacancy period on a rental property. So they're kind of doing this as far as if you're an investor too and you're renting out property, having that difference as far as payments saved in case someone moves out of that rental property and you're looking for a new renter, but also as a home buyer in case your income fluctuates, in case you lose a job. Again, I say 6 months because how we are now in this economy, because this 333 was factored in place so many years ago. So now as we're coming forward, I even tell people at this point, if you can do a year, 12, 12, 12, 12, but looking at the properties, you don't need to see thousands of properties, but 12, 12, 12, and let's say, 4, 5, 6 properties. But because it also depends on the state you're in when it comes to looking at the properties, because you could be in a state where they're still seeing properties not sit long on the market, people making multiple offers, and if it's something that you like, you might have to make that decision sooner than later. But if you're in a state where houses are kind of sitting longer, you can take that time to kind of look around. Ms. H said, yes, makes sense. I never looked at it from that point. I bought when I had the money and found a home I could afford and got a good deal. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it too, right, Ms. H? Buying it when you can afford it. Because again, who knows what tomorrow brings, right? You can have a job today and tomorrow your job can be gone. And if you have been saving thousands of dollars to be able to buy a house, but now you don't have a job and you have to, use a lender to support the other half of that financial decision as far as buying a house. Say the house $250,000 and you had about $200,000 saved, and you was going to put the whole $200,000 into the house and have a $50,000 loan possibly from that lender. Well, the lender's not going to give you nothing because you don't have a job. So you don't know what tomorrow brings. So you have to jump in and jump out and just assess what makes sense to you. Just make sure it makes sense to you, but put yourself in a good position financially, because we are seeing a lot of things occurring right now in this economy. And with that happening, you don't know what tomorrow brings financially, anything. Hey, what's going on, Donna? How you doing? Clark, is it just me that know about you utilizing the community departments for help after you purchase your home? Lots of help besides having money saved up to make repairs to homes. It helps a lot. Yes, I think it's probably, I don't know if it's just you. I hope other people know of other ways, and I hope I'm understanding your question right, as far as using those different things inside the community to help you outside of having to save money. I know that if you depend on your income, you can utilize programs like Habitat for Humanity repairs. If you have a habitat in your state or your local county or your city, they make repairs. My grandma utilized them a long time ago for her house. They put on a new roof. They put in windows in her house. You can use Habitat Humanity for repairs. In Metro Atlanta, they have another company called House Proud Atlanta, where they kind of service and make repairs for seniors and veterans. And there's a lot of different ways that you could possibly find or have these repairs that you can utilize the community. Even some churches do it, right? Some churches, your local church might do some type of things to help you in the community, and to when it comes to you helping for repairs on your home after you purchase your home differently. So I don't know if that's what you meant, Miss H, but hopefully those are there's other options. But I definitely say you should save money. I don't ever think it's wise for anyone to go into a home without having any type of money saved, and I also don't think it's wise for you to buy a home without having some stake inside the game. Like, I don't feel like And this is what's happening now. And I don't know if people are sitting down and explaining to you, like when veterans are purchasing now, because you don't have a down payment and you're not making any, you're not making any contribution to the loan. You're typically in some FHA, even at 3.5%, you're typically buying a house and you're basically underwater, right, when you buy it, because the loan might be just there, but if something happens tomorrow, you could be underwater, right? And then if you don't put any down, you could be possibly underwater as well. So 3, it says the thing, of course, you want to always compare at least 3 different properties before making your decision. Like I said, nowadays it depends in regards to the properties, because depending on which state you're in, you might be in a state where homes are still selling typically a little faster. They're getting multiple offers, might not have the time to do 3 property evaluations or look at those 3 different homes. But if you're in a state like I'm in right now, where homes are kind of sitting a little longer, 3 to 4 months, you can be like, okay, let me go look at another home, or okay, let me, evaluate this. Let me see if this makes sense to me. So you kind of want to understand where you're at, understand your market, talk to that local real estate professional to understand your market. Miss H said community development rebuilds lots of places. Yes. Okay. Yes. Hey, what's going on, Eddie? Thanks for joining us. Hopefully I know you and Christina are making that move and kind of shifting things around. I missed her live today. I don't think I've seen her come on. I was looking out for her, but I don't think I've seen her. So I know you guys are, making that move and heading up to PA. The Lang said, definitely wise to save money. Yes, please save money, people, especially if you're buying. Even if you're renting, save money. And I know it's hard. So now let's look at the 333 rule in another way, where they have the 30-33 home buying rule. So they're looking at it a little different, in the same context, but a little different, where it says here, let me see if you guys can see this. Probably might be hard to see. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Excuse me, sorry, y'all. So here is, she is not going live until the move is over. Okay, which makes sense. I figured that when I didn't see her last week and I didn't see you guys this week. I was like, oh, she probably not going to go live again until that you guys get settled in and everything is in place. So, but hopefully you guys are doing well. Everything is going okay, and I'm excited for you guys moving and shifting and getting everything done. And I appreciate you taking the time out to join the live in the midst of all the stuff going on with you guys. It says the 30-33, it says here is my 30-30 home buying rule to follow. Okay, so it says home buying rule number 1, spend no more than 30% of your gross income on monthly mortgage payment. And so I think we heard this before in the past, where you want to kind of not spend more than 30% of, they're saying your gross, I'm going to say your net income. I think you should spend no more of your net income. It is hard to do it nowadays because home prices are very expensive. But if you are that person making 6 figures, let's say $350,000 a year, $500,000 a year, and you go and you get approved for $1 million house, please go buy a $400,000 house or less. I know most people who, the mindset is that most people feel like, okay, if I can afford this and I want to live in this certain area or this certain space, or I want to be around these certain people, I'm going to buy this type of house and pay more money for this type of house. But to be honest, you want to put yourself in a more financial responsible position. So it might make more sense for you to buy something that is sustainable for that, for your income. Hey, what's going on, Cotexita? I'm late to the party. Looking forward to Christina returning. Yes, I am. I'm looking forward to her returning as well. And yeah, I figured everybody would be late today because of the daylight saving is pushed the time forward. So, but I still came on at 7. Of course, he said, I agree with the net. Yeah, I agree with the net over gross. I think people should do 30% of their net. And I know it can be hard, but I'm like, please, people, please. It says, traditionally, the industry says to spend no more than 30% of your gross income on your monthly mortgage payment. However, as mortgage rates continue to decline, more people are tempted to increase the purchase percentage. Yes, do not increase anything just because mortgage rates are declining. Because again, mortgage rates can decline, but property taxes can go up, home insurance can go up if prices go up. replacement costs, different factors. So even if you see rates go down, still sit down, work out the numbers, and stay within that range. Because we see a lot of people who make $500,000, even $1 million, that are just as broke as someone making $20,000 a year. It could be somebody making $30,000 a year, have no debt, and technically you're wealthier than that multimillionaire if you think about it. It said the people. It said the most people at risk of breaking the first rule of home buying are middle income to lower income people, which is traditionally the case. Spending 40% of your monthly $50,000 gross income on a mortgage still leaves you with $30,000 in gross income. However, spending 40% of your monthly $5,000 gross income leaves you with much of a smaller cushion. Again, we want net, not gross, you guys. You must be able to take care of your basic needs with remaining money. Therefore, it is safer to spend less of your monthly gross income on a mortgage than mortgage, the more income challenged you are. So I think we want to stay again below that net, and because we got bills outside that mortgage, you guys, other bills, car notes, credit card bills, kids. If you got kids got to get some clothes, got to get some food. Home buying rule number 2: have at least 30% of home value saved up in cash or semi-liquid assets. So they're basically saying if you're buying a house that's $100,000, you want to at least have 30% of that money saved in cash or some type of liquid asset that you can pour into purchasing the house with that cash. So it offsets that loan where you're coming in at a smaller loan per se. So if it's $100,000, if I do my math right, 30% should be with $30,000. Let me see before somebody get me. Let me do my math real quick on the calculator, because somebody gonna be watching this back and they're gonna be like, wrong with the math. So let's see, 100,000 times 30%. Yeah, 30,000. So you would basically put 30,000 down, start your loan at $70,000, which can set you up to be in a better space. As before buying a home, you should at least have 30% of the value of the home saved in cash. 20% is for the down payment to avoid PMI insurance and get the lowest mortgage rate. The other 10% is for a healthy cash buffer just in case you run into financial trouble. So they're saying split that 30% up to 20% to do conventional, avoid your PMI, because that additional PMI is on the FHA loans. And so you can avoid that PMI. And then the other 10,000 is a cash buffer, like they said, in case something happens financially, in case you lose a job, in case things break in your house. Because even if you get a new construction house, or even if you get a new HVAC system, new air condenser, new roof or whatever, things can still happen. Even if it's new. We always see all the time, even if you get a new, let's say I got a new computer, it can break, right? Somebody could come in here, a baby could come in here today and just hit my computer over and it breaks it, right? So there's always things that can occur. All right. And then it kind of breaks down and says, if you're planning on buying a home within the next 6 months, keep at least 20% down payment and cash. It is unwise to invest your down payment in stocks and other risk assets if your buying time horizon is so short. So you can do whatever you want to do with your money when it comes, but is it smart to go out and start investing in stocks if you're trying to purchase a house and you want to kind of go by this rule? No. But at the end of the day, do whatever makes sense to you with your own finances. Okay. This is just some insight for you guys that are possibly looking to buy in the future, or if you're buying right now. Home buying rule number 3: limit the value of your target home to no more than 3 times your annual house gross income. The final part of 3-3-30 rule is great for doing a quick scan at homes you can afford. It says home affordability based on cash flow is function of the price you pay for the home. If you are able to meet the first 2 home buying rules, then you can tie it all together with the final home buying rule. Rule number 3 is a quick way for home buyers to screen for homes in an affordable price range. The rule also takes in consideration down payment percentages, prevents one from stretching too much, even with a high down payment. If you earn $100,000 a year, you can comfortably afford up to $300,000 home, or maybe you are lucky enough to earn a top 1% income of $500,000 a year. If so, you can comfortably afford up to a $1.5 million home. And I suggest you don't do that. I suggest you don't go that high. That's just my suggestion, but you do what you want to do. If mortgage rates are declining and you're bullish about your income growth, you could stretch the third home buying rule, extended the home value up to 5 times your annual household income. I don't suggest that. Just know that 5 times a larger salary not only means you more absolute debt, but also higher property taxes, maintenance expenses, and so forth. And this is where I think people get confused, because at the end of the day, once you have your mortgage, that's your mortgage. But you have utilities, you have, if you're in the HOA, if that goes up, you have other random expenses, again, a car note. If you have a car note, some people don't have a car note. If you have children, if they want to go on field trips, you got to pay for that. You have all these other random expenses, right? And so people have to be mindful when they're purchasing, because I think what happens is that we all look at how much we can afford on paper, but we're only looking at one angle. That's why I tell people, if you're buying a home, you should write this on paper. Understand the math, because when you go to the lender, they're going to show you that estimate of what that monthly mortgage is, but they're not going to tell you, okay, this monthly mortgage plus your utilities, you know, the gas, the water, the electric. They're not going to tell you, oh, if let's just say you can't cut the grass or something, right? They're not going to say, well, this is how much the local grass guy costs every month or every 2 weeks to cut your grass. So there's all these other additional expenses that you should take a heed of when it comes to purchasing a home. But these are some rules and some factors that you guys should consider when looking at buying a home, if you're buying in this season, because we know it is a little bit, well, not a little bit, it's unaffordable, you know, for most Americans. Question: if someone put most of the money down on a $200,000 home, like 150, will a bank still give a loan for the rest $50,000 in order to be broke and have money left in the bank from a sale? So I know what most lenders typically do, some of them, it is hard to find a lot of banks nowadays that will lend under a certain amount, but there are lenders that will do so. So let me see, let me make sure I'm reading the question right. If someone put most of the money down, 200,000 home, like 150, yep, will a bank, sorry, not a blank, I said blank twice. Will a bank still give a loan for the rest $50,000? Like I said, some banks will, depending on who you go to for that difference. You just have to find the right bank, the right lender that will allow for that, in order not to be broke and have money left in the bank for a sale. Yeah, so yeah, it just depends. Every bank won't do it, but some will. Or they might suggest, instead of putting down the 150,000, maybe you put down 100,000, and then they'll fund that 100,000 loan, or maybe put down where it can at least be their I think the minimum, because like I said, some banks, I think their minimum might be like 70,000, some of them 60,000, but you do have some banks that you can find that will lend like do the 50,000. But as you mentioned, some banks don't want to do that because it costs them more to write up that loan than what they're making off of the loan. Again, this is something you have to talk to a lender about this to get more in depth, but some banks will do it. You just have to talk to the right person. Code Texasita, not MH08. Says, great. Hey, what's going on, David? Thanks for joining. Appreciate it. Credit union. Yeah, definitely talk to credit unions. You'll be surprised as far as what you guys can do. But let me see. The point of that amount, Clark, the payment you will have to pay. Yeah. Okay. I get what you're saying. Okay. The payment. Basically, you feel like the payment would be he said, I was at David's last Tuesday. Nobody was home. So I tossed a couple of acorns at the yard. David, you better be home. Kotex seat to come by tossing acorns at the yard. But I understand what you're saying, Miss H, as far as that payment that you'll have to pay. So it might not make sense. But hey, don't want a big payment on that home. Yeah. So like I said, it might not make sense, but so they might adjust things or readjust how things. The bank will probably readjust things and make it make sense. But I understand what you were saying. I get it now. I get it. But hopefully this live helped you guys. As we said, sellers are relisting. So if you see anything popped up on your housing market, let me know. Again, myself and a colleague of mine, we are throwing a home seller seminar of how to sell your home without perfect conditions. We're talking about if it needs repairs, you're behind on payments, or you need to buy another home first. Need to buy another home first. It's happening this coming Saturday at 11 a.m. You can definitely go click and register it. It's totally free. You don't have to pay to be there. If you guys, know somebody that's trying to sell, interested in selling in the future, they definitely can come on. It does not matter what state you're in. If you just want to come on, jump on and get information, ask questions that could possibly help you in the future, this is the purpose of the webinars that we throw. And nonetheless, head over to my community post and you can go there. You can click on the link and you can register it. It'll take you to Eventbrite. And again, it's totally free. So jump on and get more information that can help you in the future. I appreciate everybody for being here tonight. Thank you, Miss H. Have a wonderful night. David said, great topic. Yes, it's a topic that we have to talk about because I'm seeing it happening a lot in the Metro Atlanta area. So me and my colleague was like, hey, why not kind of discuss this topic and give people free information, and we can have a, via Zoom, an actual one-on-one talking discussion where you guys don't have to come on and just chat in the chat box. You can actually ask me questions or ask us questions. I guess virtually. Great show. Thank you for everyone for coming through and participating. Remember, we appreciate you. Have a great week. Enjoy this weather. Yes. Thank you, Lang. Thank you. Yes. Have a great week. And I will see you guys next Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. I appreciate everybody being here. Thanks, Clark. I will catch the replay. Yes. Have a great weekend. You appreciate it. We all appreciate you as well. I will see you guys next Sunday. All right. Bye-bye. Don't forget again to like, subscribe, and share this video if it makes sense to somebody.